It's easier than you'd think when you're a Bitcoiner. If I weren't doing Bitcoin, I wouldn't, the next thing on the list isn't crypto. That would be, number 78 on the list. And so many OGs, I think, have already dumped the portions of their stacks that they wanted to, having negotiated with their wives, 4 years ago or 8 years ago that they promised to peel some off and buy a house finally. Or it's sad how many people who love Bitcoin end up working in crypto because it feels close and similar when they really could be doing something much better for the world, make a lot more money than they spend, and stack Bitcoin, which obviously helps everybody. And then obviously on the number go up side of things, this is the cycle of the corporates. I think that's where all the noise is. I started a company called Swan. We're really focused on providing financial services for Bitcoin investors and just helping people get into Bitcoin. We pay a bunch of contractors and vendors in Bitcoin because they're orange pilled and they want Bitcoin, and we can send it to them because we have Bitcoin. That's a great use for it. Trying to pay in Bitcoin for some fiat receivable from some company that's not orange pilled, it's like, why? What's the point?
Hi, Cory. How are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Good, Robin. Thank you so much for having me on, and great to finally meet you.
Absolutely. Maybe for you're well known in the Bitcoin community, but maybe for the few people that might not know you or might have not seen you, who are you and why you're excited about Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Cory Clipston, and I am a Bitcoiner. And I started a company called Swan 6 years ago in 2019. And we're really focused on providing financial services for Bitcoin investors and just helping people get into Bitcoin, helping them manage their stack, helping them not get wrecked, et cetera. So a lot of custody options, asset management options, obviously like savings plans, retirement accounts in the United States. And excitingly, and one of the reasons that I wanted to do this show with you is we'll be back in about 40 countries outside the USA for the first time in 4 years later this month of May. So that's really exciting. So you'll be able to check out Swan and see which countries we serve, and hopefully yours will be on it.
You're expanding to all the European countries now?
Not all, but a lot of them.
Yeah, with the micro license, probably then all if you get it right.
Yeah, it's basically if we do Mika at some point, then we would have all of them substantially. But this is under the reverse solicitation rules that pretty much all these countries have, where if the customers come to us, then we can serve them, but we can't advertise in the local market and can't advertise in the local language.
Really, really cool. First of all, I really want to start with saying thank you because you and some other voices, when I first came into Bitcoin in 2020, 2021, 2022, like my orange pilling years, kind of really made clear it's Bitcoin only. And I really also like that you stayed with the business model with Bitcoin only, because I know it's really tempting to get in this shitcoin casino, make maybe more money or raise more money. So I think it's really cool that you have stayed true to Bitcoin only and just stick with that. And I think it's a hard stand to take. I cannot imagine, but it's investors are hey, why are you not doing the other things, and getting pressure from that.
It's easier than you'd think when you're a Bitcoiner, because if I weren't doing Bitcoin, I wouldn't, the next thing on the list isn't crypto. That would be, number 78 on the list. I would go back into startups and build a SaaS company, or I'd do a media company, or I'd go back into consulting or work for Google again or something like that, or just start another company. I have tons of startup ideas outside of Bitcoin. If I completely failed and couldn't do Bitcoin, I would I would do something else. I would never get into crypto. So
I like that. It's really good.
I think it's sad how many people who love Bitcoin end up working in crypto because it feels close and similar, when they really could be doing something much better for the world and could still make a lot more money than they spend and stack Bitcoin, which obviously helps everybody.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, it's not Bitcoin or crypto. It's Bitcoin, not crypto.
I love that. What makes you excited about Bitcoin in this cycle? What have you seen in the bull market this cycle?
Look, I look at it as kind of two prongs. There's kind of the engineering and protocol development and things going on with layers. So there's exciting explosion of advancements on Lightning. And then, I'm pretty close to the Arc project and helping out Tiero and Arc Labs a little bit, and really bullish on what that does, both on its own, but then also enhancing Lightning. So that's pretty cool. And then obviously on the number go up side of things, I mean, this is the cycle of the corporates. I think that's where all the noise is. And, we're shooting now on Pizza Day. Isn't it Pizza Day? May 22nd? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Pizza Day. Pizza Day today.
And yesterday, yesterday over in Japan, there was a short squeeze on MetaPlanet that just looked insane. I mean, it was like GameStop level hilarity over there, with them gapping up yesterday. And then, there's the Tether SPAC with Jack Mallers, that's going to plow a bunch of money in through Cantor and SoftBank, and do kind of a MicroStrategy clone. And then there's the David Bailey Bitcoin Magazine one, Nakamoto with Jihan and Balaji and all those guys, trying to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. So, it'll be interesting to see these play out. And there's probably another 10 in the works right now of just, hedge funds pooling together a couple $1 billion and looking for somebody to be the operator and the promoter. And so I don't think this theme is played out at all. I think it will be the primary factor leading to a larger rise in price in the near term, and also that eventual cycle high being sooner. So that's my kind of calculus since, the last couple of weeks of a lot more announcements and a lot more of these Bitcoin accumulation public vehicles starting, is that we'll be going higher and it will be sooner, which also means that a crash will come sooner and it will be worse.
Interesting. It's also interesting. It's like if you look at Google Trends and all those things, it seems like institutional adoption is the one that drives everything right now, and retail is kind of sleeping on it. I was also really disappointed by how nobody cares outside of Bitcoin about the 100K and what's going on in Bitcoin. I thought number go up technology is something that retail excites about, but not even this is really exciting for them.
Yeah. Checking I have a block rocket, not a block clock, behind me. It's really cool, but it's not in the camera right now. But we're at 111, and it does feel a lot different, this rise from 74, 73 or whatever we got down to, and then back through 100K finally and up to 110, 111. This definitely feels a lot different and a lot more real than all the attempts to take 100K before. And so, I think the bull market has begun as of yesterday. May 21st was the day the bull market began. And we'll see what happens. There's nothing but air above, and there's no price memory, and there's no natural kind of sell walls other than round numbers. You'll have a little bounce back at 120, 130, 140, 150, whatever. But I think, there aren't natural sellers when we get into these areas. And so many OGs, I think, have already dumped the portions of their stacks that they wanted to around kind of the psychological, 6 figures, having negotiated with their wives, 4 years ago or 8 years ago that they promised to peel some off and buy a house finally, or, upgrade the 1986 Datsun to something like a 2015 Camry or something like that. They peel off some coins around 100K. And I think that's what happened for 6 months. And now that selling seems to be mostly gone.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's like the milestones of 100K is also like you if you are in Bitcoin since like, I don't know, like 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, at some point you're like, okay, maybe you only earn a little bit, but you saved a lot. And then it's like, hey, I want to peel off a little bit to maybe up my standard or something. Like it's understandable. I think it's human. Even though it probably will be a bad financial decision long term, but maybe it's a good emotional decision.
Yeah, we have lives and we have families, and you only live once. And, if you haven't visited Rome and Istanbul and Barcelona and London and Vienna in your life, like take the trip at some point. You got to. Otherwise, what is this all for? And I think that's where a lot of people kind of get to once they've held for a long, long time, so I'm never gonna lambast anybody that holds for 10 years and, appreciates through 2 cycles and, goes up 2 orders of magnitude in their stack value or something like that from peeling off some coins and living life a little bit.
How do you actually look at selling Bitcoin versus, let's say, you have to like buy a new car because your old broke down, and you either have to sell Bitcoin because you're already all in, or you can borrow against it? How do you look at that topic?
I mean, if you have cash flow coming in because you have a job and you can cover interest payments and that you can pay back the fiat loan, without having to peel off Bitcoin later, or you just, you don't have to put up much of your stack for the asset-backed loan. And so then you can afford to wait it out and roll the loan, 2, 3, 4 years or however long it takes for Bitcoin's CAGR and price appreciation to make it cheaper. Then it makes sense. But, there's a reason that we don't make asset-backed loans available in the Swan interface. It's because we want to be able to talk to people. That's kind of the point of Swan, is that you actually get a private client advisor that you can actually speak to about these things. We also don't do small loans, like somebody that's, only looking to borrow 5K or 10K or something like that, probably shouldn't be doing that. In my view, like that's, probably going to get you wrecked. Most of these asset-backed loan products, it's the lower end of the scale that's getting margin called, because they wouldn't be borrowing the money unless they really, really needed it. So it's probably better to focus on top line and earnings rather than risking your stack if you don't actually have much of a stack. I'm back on sells. Interestingly, we just added a sell button in the Swan app and website for the first time since inception. So the first 5 years of Swan was no sell button. I think we've made our point. Also, we've had so many people that bought, in the single digits, single digit thousands, and bought at 17, 18, 30, whatever it is. They're just, they've written it up, and I don't think that we need to force them to get in touch with client service so we can convince them not to sell anymore, which is what we've done historically. You had to call us and answer some questions before we allowed you to sell.
It's almost like the reversed, where when you try to transfer from the bank to a Bitcoin exchange, the bank is asking like, do you really want to do that? And now it's like the reverse of like, do you really want to go back to fiat?
Yeah, no, it's true. We have this discussion with Jorn, our German UI UX guy, and we were always laughing about how many boxes do you have to close to be able to sell? Like, are you sure? Close. Are you really sure? Yes. Like maybe you move it around and it's really hard to click on an impossible CAPTCHA, like you have to click on the bridges or the traffic lights, but you're always wrong. And then finally you could sell, but no, we have a sell button now. I gave up.
Without a think time. So like you sell button, but you have to think about your decision 10 days.
Yes, that's what we should do. Yeah, we should have like a slight delay or something, but yeah.
It's really interesting. I actually did not know that, because in Austria I couldn't even use Swan for the longest time, and since the last 6 months I just earn in Bitcoin and don't really have to buy it. But it's interesting to not have a sell button. I wasn't aware that Swan does not have a sell button. I always knew about Bitcoin only, but how, like, was it? Because it's so, if you build a Bitcoin exchange, you're like, okay, like buy and sell, like those are the two options. So it was from the inception of like, hey, we don't want people to sell it.
We were never an exchange. We don't have an order book. So we've always just been an accumulation platform and a financial services firm. So it's, yes, you buy Bitcoin, and then you have retirement accounts, you have custody, you have inheritance advice, you have things that are coming later this year, like a Bitcoin rewards credit card and Bitcoin interest on dollar deposits. We have Swan Vault, the 2 of 3 multi-sig product, and just kind of on and on. Entity accounts, business stacking, corporate treasury services. So it's really about being a broad-based, Bitcoin-based wealth platform or a financial services firm, not an exchange. So the type of client that we attract, obviously with our Bitcoin-only message and hold for the long term, not having a sell button was only ever weird or an issue for like less than 1% of our clients, because none of them historically ever wanted to sell. So it's really about our client base getting a little bit longer in the tooth and having gone through a couple of bull markets now, or 1.5, where you start to hear more requests for a sell button.
Yeah, it's like then you don't want to take advantage of that. But you had also
not an
those
exchange, right? Just like, these kind of, Swan, Unchained, River, Strike, Fold, like those are not exchanges. They're basically brokers.
It's like an on and off ramp, on ramp, basically. It's really interesting. I'm wondering, because you're so long in the Bitcoin and you've learned a lot on Bitcoin. What is the kind of the biggest lessons you learned from Bitcoin outside of Bitcoin, really, outside of money and Namugap technology and about the cycles?
So completely outside of Bitcoin, I think because Bitcoin is so linked with energy and energy markets and energy production, I think that's probably the one area that I learned the most about, probably that I wasn't into before. I was already very into economics, finance, investing, macroeconomic history, monetary history, like all those kinds of things. I went to University of Chicago, started there 23 years ago. So I kind of been around the monetarists and the Austrians for a long time. Yeah, I think getting energy pilled is something that happens to most Bitcoiners that start to pay attention and see what's true and what's not true about what we've been told about energy markets and energy production.
Yeah, the biggest thing is always like when you listen to them, you're like, when you spend less energy, it's better than when you spend more energy. And I'm like, no, actually, is that really true? I don't think so.
It's definitely not true. Yeah, it basically comes from, false narratives around population bombs from the 70s, and thinking that we needed like a smaller energy footprint and people freaking out about peak oil. But meanwhile, we've used more oil every year for the last 50 years. And also every year for the last 50 years, we've had more proven reserves. So as we use more oil, we're finding out that we have more oil, because that's just the nature of the planet that we live on, that as technology gets better and as technology gets cheaper over time, because of going down the cost curve of production and exploration, we end up with more proven reserves as we go.
That's why it was also frustrating. I mean, now the environment FUD is almost gone. I don't hear it a lot, but it took some time, and it was like really annoying for like 1-2 years there.
It is, yeah. I'm assuming you're kind of an upper millennial and I'm kind of like a young Gen X, and our entire lives have only been with the backdrop of climate freakout. But if you're a little bit older than us and you were born in the 60s or before, then, you saw 10 years of global freezing FUD before the global warming FUD. So we were all going to freeze, and the ice caps were going to come and cover everything in the 60s and 70s. And that didn't happen, And so I think some of those folks have a little bit more perspective because they've seen this go both ways, and it's kind of a way to start lots of nonprofits where the people running the nonprofits profit plenty because their salaries are like $1 million, and they spend all of the donations on private jets and parties.
I'm actually Gen Z still.
What's that?
Most people are. I'm still Gen Z.
Okay, well it's the
but
healthy,
like just a year.
Healthy Central European facial hair always confuses me.
Yeah, really cool. I really want to get your take on the things that kind of happened this cycle, and there's so much happening from like last year. I mean, in America, I'm kind of envy, honestly, because in America, at least, there's like Bitcoin talk on politics sides, on regulator side. In European Union, if you hear something, it's very negative, and you're lucky to hear anything about Bitcoin at all. How has the political landscape for you changed in the last coming years, and how also Trump maybe impacted things on your side?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been fascinating, and it's a story of leaning into a demographic of Bitcoiners, but also obviously all the money coming from the crypto folk trying to perform regulatory capture and get a get out of jail free card by backing politicians. So it's reopened that battlefield that kind of ended to some degree with the launch of the ETFs and kind of the separation of Bitcoin from crypto after the crypto collapses in 22, 23. That battlefield has kind of been reopened because, crypto did not get regulated out of existence in the United States, and it's very, very strong, and they own a bunch of representatives and a bunch of senators, and the crypto folk basically own the White House. And, and Bitcoin is kind of along for the ride, and it's the only thing that all these different crypto companies can agree on. And of course, Bitcoin doesn't care because it doesn't have a management team and it doesn't have lobbyists. So it's kind of at the whim of very idiosyncratic relationships where we benefit from, a few senators that actually understand Bitcoin deeply. They still sometimes have to make compromises with blockchain, crypto, DeFi people. So that would be like a Cynthia Loomis or something like that, where she's involved in crypto things, but is really like Bitcoin only, and at least doesn't take money or do favors for the worst of the crypto actors. And then you also have, Senator Cruz, for instance, who understands Bitcoin deeply and in a very principled way doesn't touch crypto at all. And then you have a bunch of politicians that are just completely for sale, and they will say whatever they need to get the money to get a bunch of donations and then get reelected. And that's pretty much the rest of them. And then you've got the Trumps, just lining their pockets every which way that they can by taking promo money and $350 million of trading fees on Trump coin, and, a big mining company just giving them 20% of the company to be associated, things like that. So it's just, it's the most commercially minded administration ever, as far as the administration itself and the candidate and his family being in business and more than doubling their net worth since January, mostly through crypto, is pretty unprecedented in really all of world politics outside of tyrannies.
Interesting. I have one observation. I'm curious, what's your take on this? Till the ETF, and especially now with a more friendly administration against Bitcoin, till this happened, I was always concerned will become peacefully or like a little bit more violent to the Bitcoin world, or Bitcoin, hyper Bitcoinized world. And since USA is now so friendly to Bitcoin, those concerns are kind of washed away, and I'm really thinking it will be a peaceful revolution. How did this impact your feeling about peaceful, non-peaceful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the original mission of Swan, which I published in early 2020, was 10 million Bitcoiners, and it was about having an intransigent minority of 3 or 4% of the population being ready to fight for Bitcoin in some way, show up at a town hall or activate fundraising to go attack an anti-Bitcoin candidate, things like that. And, we saw that, right? And that was kind of the battle for a while there was, Brad Sherman talking a lot of smack about Bitcoin. And so, I interviewed the candidates that were going to run against him and found one that would be pro-Bitcoin. And then she became a star. And got Dorsey behind her and all that kind of stuff. And, Sherman hasn't said anything contra Bitcoin ever since, because it became obvious that that was not a good issue to run on. And then in 2022, kind of advanced my thinking and made it more overarching, which was when I published The Race to Avoid the War. And that's specifically what you're talking about, which is, basically we're in a race to orange pill as much of society as possible before any kind of coordinated opposition that really the only entity on the planet that could actually make life difficult for Bitcoin and Bitcoiners is the US State Department. That's it. So it's literally just that. And so if everything from legislative to judiciary to Wall Street and culture and investment firms all through the US and tons of hodlers and 950,000 humans having a little bit of MicroStrategy at this point directly in their accounts, plus another 55 million I've heard that have exposure through funds and retirement pensions, et cetera, that they own a piece of that own MicroStrategy. That kind of distribution, and that gets enough people over the line to caring about Bitcoin and being aligned with number go up, frankly. but also as they go down the rabbit hole, philosophically aligned and kind of understanding where this is going and how it's actually good for America. You know, we're in a really good spot here for the near term. So the first order effect of the red wave and having a president that talks positively about Bitcoin and does positive Bitcoin things through the family and friends or whatever is highly positive for Bitcoin. So it reduced the chance dramatically of something bad happening to Bitcoin and Bitcoiners in the near term. What we don't know is what happens later with a pendulum swing back. And basically the concerns of lots of people who don't understand Bitcoin are not being listened to. And just like this kind of Trump backlash against the Obama-Biden years has pushed the conversation and the Overton window and all kinds of things on social media and media writ large to the right, we don't know what the backlash is going to be. So, we're enjoying the salad days right now, but it's very unlikely that the Republicans win the House and the Senate next year in the midterms. It looks like the Democrats will probably pick up both. And we don't know what's going to happen after that. And Bitcoin being so closely tied to crypto is probably going to end up being a massive mistake because nothing has changed from a legislative perspective. All that's changed is whether it's being enforced or not. So there is no clarity on crypto in the US, and there's no further understanding of the differences between Bitcoin and crypto. And there could be a massive backlash specifically against all of the grift that we've seen in the crypto space, really since November, that could really drag things down and make it really, really difficult. So I wouldn't celebrate yet. I think the race that we're hoping we win, and I talk to people about this a lot, is can we make enough progress? And I hope that we do, that even when that backlash comes, which I think is inevitable and will target Bitcoin and Bitcoiners a lot, we will be so entrenched and number will be kind of so high and so many people will have an economic incentive to defend it that it won't matter. They'll come too late. So that's my view on how things play out over the next few years. I think there'll be a huge backlash, but I'm really hopeful that we will have made enough progress to make that attack unsuccessful.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition, for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if if you're in a jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. It's interesting. Yeah, this connection to crypto is so, like, on a personal side annoying, on an objective side just not true, and really something where I'm like, how can we get that? And I think it's getting better and better, because even Trump said, like, either Bitcoin and crypto. So he always uses Bitcoin and crypto, so like those two words. This is kind of like, for me, the first step towards the, like, having two different things there. But it's still annoying that he talks about crypto land and crypto things, and a lot of people do that. And for me, it's always a red flag if someone comes to me and like, oh, like, I work in crypto. I'm like, oh, that's immediately like a red flag, or blockchain or Web3 or anything of those keywords. So I think we have to still make a better job in explaining people why Bitcoin is absolutely not crypto.
Yeah. I mean, it continues. The work continues. We had about a year there where, we were even considering turning off the daily tweet from the Swan handle that just says Bitcoin, not crypto. It's been running for a few years. It became very obvious earlier this year that we have to keep it running for probably another decade at least.
Absolutely. What do you think? And Swan is doing a great job in educating people, and you're doing a great job in educating people. Is it like almost like an education first business from what I see? What do you think will it take to orange pill the next, like, billion people or 2 billion people, whatever the number is, to really get the masses in? Because we are still, I think, extremely early, extremely a small group of people that really actually understand Bitcoin.
Look, I think it's just expanding concentric circles of more and more people attaining a certain level of ability to explain and connect and kind of attach ideas that then start more and more people down the rabbit hole. No one voice is going to completely orange pill another person. At some point, deep understanding always has to flip for the subject over to doing it yourself. You have to go down the rabbit hole yourself. You have to go through that, 30 browser tabs open, 6 podcasts that you're following, that always has to happen at some point. Read 3 or 4 books, whatever it is, before you fully kind of grok it. And, at some point you believe, but you don't yet understand. And so then you're looking to kind of confirm and buttress your belief and turn that into a rational understanding. And that's when you know that you are fully orange pilled, is when you are aware that other people think you're a believer, but you're not. You know that you actually know. Like, I know Bitcoin is rising in price over time. It's not a belief.
It's yeah. Do you think AI has actually a positive impact on that, because it gets easier to get information, or is it?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the tools for sure. It varies in quality, but yeah, it does seem like Bitcoiners have done a nice job of providing enough on the internet to seed the LLMs to understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, and understand Bitcoin's the fastest horse in the race, and pretty good descriptors in Grok and ChatGPT and Gemini of what Bitcoin is and how it works and all those kinds of things. It's pretty effective. It's well done. Yeah, and I think if you go back to when we started out, the last cycle, like, it was very difficult to find information about just Bitcoin in 2017. There was, almost nothing, very few podcasts. I think Lavera and Marty started in 2018. Safe's book came out in 2018. Jan's book came out in 2019. Lynn and Seyr didn't hit the scene until 2020. So it was just really different. And, as you know, like it was a mission to start an education-focused Bitcoin financial services company. That was the plan from the beginning, and it was education first, and it was information and research first. And that has a profit motive and rationale as well, which is very well known in startup land and tech land. It's just called, content-led acquisition or content-driven acquisition. And it just means, reaching people through media and having them get in touch with you. It's like demand generation as opposed to running a bunch of ads on Facebook or Google. And I think it works in particular when your target audience is kind of niche and small and buried. Like you can't send direct mail to the rich people in a zip code asking them to buy Bitcoin. It won't be profitable because you'll get, 1 or 0 clients out of the 10,000 people that you mail to. And that won't make up for the cost of the mailer. But if you run scaled media, then you can hit every neighborhood of 10,000 rich people on YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn and newsletters and whatever, or just, having a lot of appearances on TV, and then people get in touch with you. Yeah.
Do you think that Swan's role in the Bitcoin ecosystem will shift somehow in the next 5 to 10 years as Bitcoin also evolves?
Well, it already has, because the 27 to 2023 era, the top of funnel for Bitcoin was shitcoins, because it was $100 billion of malinvestment from shitcoin VCs trying to promote a better Bitcoin and slagging Bitcoin, lying about Bitcoin, trying to wrap Bitcoin in the crypto flag, or trying to wrap crypto in the Bitcoin flag. These were the tools of the trade for Andreessen Horowitz and Sequoia, and of course all of the crypto native VCs as well, was to try to fool people. And the launch of the ETFs in January of 2024 completely changed the game, because now the top of funnel for Bitcoin, with the rise of MicroStrategy and these treasury stocks as well, plus the ETFs, it's in people's brokerage account. And so they're getting Bitcoin education, and, what BlackRock puts out is damn accurate. That team is run by a couple of Bitcoiners that started a blockchain group years ago, even though they were Bitcoiners, and they tried to steer the ship slowly, and they succeeded. So, and Abby, the CEO of Fidelity, has understood Bitcoin for more than a decade. So, they do a nice job. And obviously Seyr is an incredible spokesperson for Bitcoin and he actually understands both SOV and MOE very clearly. He just stopped talking about MOE for political and other reasons a couple years ago. But he knows it's more than just a store of value as well. So now the top of funnel for Bitcoin is Bitcoin, but it's something that's just price exposure in a ticker in your brokerage account. And then once you get over 0.5% or 1% of your net worth into Bitcoin, then that's when people want the real thing, and they want to talk to Bitcoin experts, and they want all these other products like, inheritance and custody and, more or less risk reward trade-off, and then some asset management, asset-backed loans, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where a company like Swan steps in. So I'd say instead of kind of like battling it out versus Coinbase for that first touch and that first $100 buy, we now pushed down in funnel a little bit and got pushed up market. So we focus a lot more on, I wouldn't say whales, it's probably more like deer. I think we're a deer hunting platform where we kind of serve like the upper end of mass affluent and then high net worth and ultra high net worth, but where we are their investment team, not where they have a team. So I think if you go all the way up to, corporates that have big committees, and you're not talking to a Bitcoiner on the other side, they're just kind of making like a rational economic case for allocating 1% of some insurance portfolio. Like that's what Ross Stevens and the NYDIG team is for. They come from Wall Street. They have credibility on Wall Street. They know the ratings agencies. They can get, loan pools rated by Moody's. That's a whole different game, and you have to be in New York for 30 years to play it. But I think just below that, for the people that are buying, maybe up to 100 million, and you're kind of dealing with like maybe a family office or something like that, but there's a principal making the decision. I think that's squarely where Swan fits.
Deer hunter, I love it. Never heard that one. Deer hunter, not whale hunter.
Yeah, we have lots of nerdy analogies and frameworks in the US, and you can do it either with land animals or water animals. So the land animal one is rabbits, deer, and elephants. So rabbits would be like Cash App, elephants would be like NIDIG, and deer is Swan. And then there's the land version. I'm sorry, the water version is I think minnows, dolphins, and whales. But I don't like hunting dolphins. It sounds mean. So anyway, maybe we catch and release the dolphins, get them into self-custody.
Yeah, it's like hunting dolphins could be bad for marketing if you push that.
Somehow the poor deer, little Bambi, just gets screwed in this one.
Yeah, deer is it's also an animal, but it seems like more normal to hunt those than dolphins.
Yeah. Anyway, well, how about this? How about we help the deer and we help the dolphins? I think we're
hunting the deers that they don't get shot.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
The store of value and medium of exchange, the SOV and MOV discussion is really interesting. I've had Jeff Booth on for the second time, I think like a month or 2 months ago. And he said the sentence that still doesn't really make sense for me, but I try to crock it ever since. He said, when Bitcoin fails as a medium of exchange, it would also fail as a store of value. Whereas there's a lot of examples of real estate has seen to be a good store of value over the past years, but hasn't been any medium of exchange. How do you look at those both requiring each other?
Well, I don't know about fail, but it would be its upside would be dramatically chopped if it's not useful, if it can't be used as a medium of exchange. I don't think we run any risk of that whatsoever. It's just a matter of the quality and sovereignty of the medium of exchange. It's whether it will actually scale in a self-custody way for those people that want to use it that way. But already it works as a medium of exchange in the traditional financial system just by literally replacing a dollar sign with a B sign. It can use, as Seyr often says, the last mile can just be TradFi and banks and payment apps and things like that. And that's what you see a lot. It's not hard to transact from store of value being Bitcoin here. Really, the medium of exchange doesn't matter. What matters is what did the payer store their value in and what does the receiver store their value in. I pay for things throughout Europe and Turkey, and the merchant is accepting euros or accepting pounds or accepting lira, and I'm spending dollars and nobody gives a shit. They don't even need to know that. That just happens in the background. So, this I think I just think it will inevitably be used as a medium of exchange because it's when you do have people on both sides of the transaction that prefer Bitcoin, then you will just use Bitcoin to transact. And that's just how it's going to be. So if I prefer to receive Bitcoin and you have Bitcoin already, we're not going to send it through dollars first. You're just going to send me Bitcoin.
That makes a lot of sense.
Transaction. Yeah. So, but rushing it and freaking out about it when we're so early in Bitcoin as a store of value. I'll tell you right now, I don't expect Bitcoin to be a widely used medium of exchange until it's probably $2 million a coin. So like $40 trillion market cap, another 20x from here. So if anyone is kind of freaking out that we don't have Bitcoin widely used as a medium of exchange and they want to change the protocol and they're like, oh my God, the failure of a circular economy in some third world country. It's like, dude, it wasn't going to work no matter what. There's no point. So keep building the tech, look for cases where it is the best tool for the job, which is again, where both the sender and the receiver prefer Bitcoin. That's the best. That's when Bitcoin is the best for sending the value. Remittances are very good for that. We pay a bunch of contractors and vendors in Bitcoin because they're orange pilled and they want Bitcoin, and we can send it to them because we have Bitcoin. That's a great use for it. Trying to pay in Bitcoin for some fiat receivable from some company that's not orange pilled. It's like, why? What's the point?
That makes a lot of sense. I also pay one freelancer, one contractor in Bitcoin, and I looked at my bank how much it would have how expensive this would be, because she's in a different country, how expensive this would be to send it. And it's about like 5 to 10 euros that I have to spend more. And the Bitcoin transaction usually costs me around 50 to 70 cents currently, because we have low transaction fees. It's amazing how cheap and how great this actually works. And you don't have to fill out like the address and all those KYC things that you need.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely amazing to send money on a blockchain. It's awesome.
Really cool. One thing that you also mentioned is the ETF. I just want to quickly touch on that, because I think the second year of the ETF is probably maybe the more important year even for an ETF than the first one, because those products need a little bit of time to really get at full speed. What do you expect from the second year, or like now we are already in the second year of the ETF?
I mean, the numbers have been great, and it looks like it's been enough to sustain. Maybe one of the most interesting things is how good a product it's been for the 3 through 10 players. So outside of BlackRock and Fidelity, it has been an amazing win for Bitwise, for ARK, and for some of the other smaller ones. Like, it's really meaningful to their businesses. And they're having success marketing it, just competing on promo periods and fees and things like that, and still able to grow a vertical around this. And then the explosion of derivative products off the ETFs is a big deal. So having options on ETFs, having 2x long ETFs and short ETFs and things like that. So it's just kind of the continued financialization. It's also a big deal for a lot of investors to be able to include the balance of their Bitcoin price exposure, because they own the ticker in portfolio loans. So being able to buy a house just with a pretty cheap portfolio loan, that's going to be priced better by a long shot for most wealthy people than a Bitcoin-backed loan, like an asset-backed loan from one of the lenders. So that's been a big use case as well. I think the next step is probably, figuring out how to move people faster and faster out of ETFs into real Bitcoin. And I think that will be the next step, is educating the ETF holders about why real Bitcoin is better and what you can do with it, and kind of moving that. And that's a big thing that we do. I cheerlead the ETFs, but I also just consider them as like a starting point. It's not the end state for most people.
I hope they in Europe they already have the one that is already there since 2015. The in-kind withdrawal would be really cool to have, just like an in-kind withdrawal for all the ETFs, so it's easy to switch to the actual self-custody.
It's certainly not in their interest, and they're not going to do it willingly.
Hopefully the market forces them to do it.
Yep, hopefully.
I have one question to ask each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
I can teach people a step back jumper in basketball. I got a lot of moves when it comes to getting a jump shot off. I don't know. Let me think. I have a really good list of places to visit and things to do in Turkey, because I've been going every summer for 15 years. So that's something that Bitcoiners hit me up for a lot. I have kind of the compendium of restaurants and tourist sites and neighborhoods and things like that, because wifey's from Turkey and I go every summer.
Oh, okay. Your wife is from Turkey. Okay, that's why. Yeah. I was like, it's interesting, an interesting place to select.
So I know a lot about Bitcoin, Turkey, and basketball.
I love the combination. We have a routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question: how many people in the world do you think really, truly understand Bitcoin?
It's up quite a lot in the last few years. I would have said something like probably 200,000 in 2021. I honestly probably like 2 million that really understand Bitcoin like pretty deeply, like you and I. And
that's amazing.
But so low bar. As much as I understand Bitcoin, I think there's probably 2 million people here or deeper.
True. Yeah, it's super hard for me to Because it's like, if you imagine 8 billion people and then there's like 2 million that really truly understand it, it's like, oh gosh, we are super early. But yeah, thank you so much, Cory, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, I think people assume that I get tons of emails, but since we don't use email at Swan, I'll see it. So you can actually just email me, Cory@swan.com, if you have questions about, the company or Bitcoin or whatever. We'll get it answered and help you out. Otherwise, on Twitter, Swan, SWAN, is the company handle. Put out a lot of cool media and things like that. And I'm Cory Clipston, full name, on Twitter. So that's probably a good place to start.
Thank you so much for taking the time. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.